Welcome guys to another Snapdragons video. I'm sitting down with TBG, top 8 of Battle Hardened Singapore 2025, a living legend format. Here to break down his -io list. Say hi TBG.
Hello.
Alright, so today we're kind of going to be breaking down -io, its relation to kind of the LL format, and also kind of what the deck does, how to play it, any good sideboard plans or ideas going into particularly hard matchups. And where TBG will kind of be taking the deck going forward. Kind of first question, why did you end up going into -io? What was kind of the motivation to play that deck for this event?
So I played the System Reset version in Osaka, the same list as Sam Sutherland, and one of the most fun fab decks you ever play. If you like taking game actions, this is the deck for you. Sometimes you'll hit 30, 40 and just keep going higher and higher. I didn't really have another deck in my bag, so this was the default pick for Sunday if the PT didn't go super well. And that's why I ended up on it.
So you love to see it. So -io, as we kind of talked about in the intro to LL video, sits somewhere on the more powerful side of the aggro spectrum. It's less resilient to some of the more disruptive decks like New and Icelander, but you get a lot more power and a lot more consistency. So I would say that one of the big things with -io is that you get a lot more power into the mid-range decks and the control decks that kind of are trying to drag the game on and try and get maximum value out of their tools, whereas -io has a certain level of inevitability throughout its combo game plan. Do you want to kind of break down what this combo game plan actually is for us and kind of how the combo functions?
So there's one key difference between this deck and CC, and that is High Octane. High Octane is going to give you an action point every time you boost this turn. But that doesn't sound like a lot. All of the draw cards are banned in CC, but they're legal in LL. So we have 9 cards that draw a card. They are Spark of Genius / Processor, the High Octane draw, and Time of Windle in the main deck. When you start your combo, there is a chess piece from the Armory deck that says whenever you boost, gain a resource. So you just keep boosting, which will gain you resources, which lets you play the cards that draw. And then into your more combo-focused matchups, we have System Reset. Most people think System Reset is not very good, but actually card's crazy. So you pay an amount of resources, then banish that many items, and then they come back into play. Crank items, when they come back into play, will gain you an action point. So even if you have 2 processors and not 3, if you have a 3rd crank item, you can pay 3 into this. Crank all 3 of them, go back up to 3 action points, and then you can draw 2 off the 2 processors. And then it's a bit like Zen's Chi Time, where you trade 2 cards for 3.
Yeah, so we're kind of talking about setting up Cerebellum Processor plus System Reset, in addition to a copy of High Octane, and then trying to cycle through the deck in its entirety while gaining extra resources from Heavy Industry Power Plant and extra action points from High Octane. How often would you say that you're kind of enacting the full version of this combo? How often are you kind of going for more small combos? And what's your kind of damage output like on these turns?
I think I full comboed every matchup except for Zen, who you could probably full combo him, but you get a couple of broken sideboard cards that we'll touch on later. I played against Briar, Chain, and a couple of other like mid-rangey aggro decks where they have like very strong average turn, but you still get like 3 or 4 turns to get there. So you just block and then you aim to set up a couple of items. And then when you're at like 40 to 30 cards, the boost cards are actually, I kind of treat them as 4 damage opt 1. So since you have such a high density now of cards that go up cards, you just will find a lot of the time that your hand doesn't look very good, and then you'll get 9 or 10 of game actions, and you're like, oh, there's the first tome, which draws me into Spark of Genius, which draws me into System Reset, and the spaghetti noodle would just keep going. I played the Mirror against Sam Sutherland, round 4. And it was turn 2. I have a High Octane and a Spark. I'm like, I'm just going to try and send 20 damage. But then Spark draws Spark, which draws a Tome of Findle. And next thing we know, Sam's on 4. And I have 3 processes in play, and then he dies next turn.
Yeah. So TBG came 7-0 in the Swiss of the Battle Hardened, obviously evidencing that the deck is in an incredibly strong place right now in the meta. What would you say are kind of the harder matchups for this deck?
Count Your Blessing New, as we saw at Worlds, is quite hard. They just gain a bunch of life and force you to combo quicker than you'd like to. I haven't actually played it because my round 7 opponent doesn't believe in a perfect Swiss record, so scooped, and I didn't get to try my plan. I think that there's a reasonable chance that with the 9 Count Your Blessings that you can just get there earlier on like a more boost focused plan. But the real bad matchup is Icelander and Ice Lexi. More Icelander because it's at instant speed.
Yeah.
The best card against this deck is Channel the Bleak Expanse, which says that while it's on the board, you're not allowed to draw cards. And you have like 12 cards in your deck, and they're pretty much all your best cards that say draw a card. So when they don't, you're just like a really mid boost deck and kind of hoping that's good enough.
Is there any kind of changes you would make to the list going forwards? Is there anything you think you could do to tighten up some of those harder matchups?
Oh, definitely. Much of the sideboard was some guesswork. There's really 6 cards you bring when you're comboing, which are the system resets and optical monocles, so that you can dig through your deck faster and draw more cards. And then when you're on like the aggro plan, I was bringing in Pulse Wave Harpoon and then Null Time Zone or Stasis Cell, whichever was better. Stasis Cell, I'm sure not many people know of, but it's actually got some quite strong text on it. It stops people activating equipment. So you can stop Viserai using Skill Leader, Zen activating the Kasaya for Zen states, or you can stop them blocking with stuff like Traverse. And then Null Time Zone into the 3 Mystic Heroes stops them pitching Inner Chi. It's also just quite strong at stalling. So like in some matchups where, you know, if my opponent resolves Art of War, I'm just going to lose. You will play it, and then they cannot pitch or play the Art of War when they draw it up. They have to arsenal it. And in most of the aggro decks are not very big on arsenaling, so it's pretty telegraphed.
Yeah, so kind of using these disruptive tools against aggro decks and kind of refocusing the game around your own cards and buying you the time to get to your combo turns. And then against the slower decks that are trying to disrupt you, going taller with your filtration through stuff like Optical Monocle and System Reset. I think noticeably a big thing with this deck is also that Optical Monocle, Stasis Cell, even though these are items without crank, you can still dash IO them off the top, which might feel slightly unnatural, but it is just a thing you can do. It's another reason dash IO is just a absolutely broken hero.
I would definitely leave Red Protocol on the board sometimes because you'll end up with these blue items that are not like great to play on their own. But if you're pitching a blue to put a Monocle or a Stasis Cell into play and then getting the red back, you're just so far ahead on advantage.
Yeah, and I imagine in these fatigue matchups, getting back copies of Maximum Velocity, for example, or Twin Drive to gain extra action points is probably extremely relevant.
Twin Drive on your combo turn is actually, it will give you 2 resources and then 8 action points equal to your Octane. So sometimes resolving a Twin Drive can be worth 10 points or higher.
Yeah, with Go again, even better.
The max Vs are actually maybe the worst card in the main deck. I might trim down on them soon. You just find that you will struggle to get to 3 boosts without Teklo Foundry Heart easily, or you'll have like a broken card on top of your deck and you don't want to commit the 3rd or 2nd boost to resolve the max V. I think you still need some in there for when you're drawing your entire deck as just ways to get the boom grenades to hit.
What was the single copy of Dissolution Sphere for? I believe this would be for something like OTK Florian or OTK Viserai, maybe?
Yeah, that was the theory. I think that card's actually terrible, and Stasis Cell will do the job but better because it's a blue and you can leave it on the board till it looks like they're about to combo. I would probably swap it for TikTok Clock for the Mirror and Kano.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Against Kano and kind of arcane decks, you got Misfire Dampener.
So Misfire Dampener, yeah, huge upgrade from was it the latest set or Hunted? I think Hunted.
I think it was Hunted, yes.
Yeah, but essentially you get an extra point of prevention when you boost it. But since boost is a cost, you just make sure that your first action is a boost. And then this will always be essentially spell word 2. Plus you have AB3, which means your Kano matchup's pretty good compared to the other aggro decks.
Yeah, noticeably you're touching on the fact that if you play your first action for the turn as a boost card, because boost is a cost, your misfire dampeners immediately live to crack for 2 at some point during the turn. When do you think it's correct to be on Teklo Foundry Heart and Heavy Industry Gear Shift over Achilles Accelerator and Heavy Industry Power Plant?
So I was bringing in Teklo Foundry Heart for Zen. You don't have any combo sideboard in, really. You just have the disruption, so you want the extra ways to dig to your high octane, your times and such. It was fine. I think that Zen is such a good matchup if you put a null time zone on the board that you maybe even don't need it. The one armor is like maybe nice for on-hit decks, but currently they don't really exist. I think everyone's just trying to throw the biggest number. The Gear Shift and Achilles Accelerator play quite differently. I think it's personal preference for which one you want to combo with. I was playing Achilles if I needed barrier and Gear Shift if I didn't. You just got to remember that you have to use the Gear Shift proactively if you want the potential draw of it, where the Achilles you get to see. So sometimes the Gear Shift is nice to be like, oh, there's a red boom grenade on top of my deck, mid combo, and you just yeet it into the banish zone.
So we're talking
where
about
the Achilles you'd be stuck.
Yeah, so we're talking about kind of using it as another filtration / opt method, in addition to the effect of gaining extra action points.
If your combo turn is good enough, you won't need to use these, and then this is just like a banked draw on your next turn.
So kind of moving to the maybe board, is there any of these that you think should maybe be reconsidered going into this current meta? Signal Jammer, for example?
I would definitely bring the clocks in. I think I'd maybe go down a stasis cell as well to get them up to 2.
Yep.
A lot of the people at this event were not playing the system reset version. They were just playing their CC deck with some Time of Finals, which I think as like a straight aggro deck, Dash IO is nowhere near as good as Zen and the Room Blades. So the Signal Jammer was interesting. I watched some of the other Dash IO's players use it. It'll stop non-attacks, so like Bri won't be able to make their embodiment, Chain can't go too crazy, Kano can't pop off. But it also affects you, so that means that when you're playing it, you're usually only going to get 1 turn out of it, and then you have to let it die on your turn, or you let it keep stalling. So I wasn't a huge fan of that. I felt like you had better blowout cards, like the clocks, Null Time Zone, and Stasis Cell. The max fees in the main deck, I need to do some more testing. I definitely think you can at least cut 1 of them, maybe cut 2 of them, and put in more boost cards. It could be like an additional 0 cost. The 0 cost is really important with the chess piece, so that you're actually going positive on resources.
Do you think like...
I suppose Rocket I think is the next one.
Yeah, that's exactly the one I was thinking of. Or perhaps Red Expedite is like also something. But yeah.
Sure, definitely could be either of those. Outpace was one I was thinking about, and I literally never came up. One important thing I should mention is Phantasmal Footsteps and Rampart of the Ram's Head, because you break the chain so often with your processor draws, they will be able to block like 10 to 20 life. For those matchups, bring in Stasis Cell, so that you just put the Stasis Cell on the board, and then when you're about to combo, you activate its effect to stop them blocking. And then, unfortunately, we only worked this out the day after World Championships, so we didn't get to play it in the main event, but it definitely will come up in your LL matchups, especially for like Oldham and Prism and stuff.
Yeah. What do you think about Cogworks Tinkerings? Where do you think this card might be playable in the deck?
So I saw Sam was playing that. I wasn't sure if that's just because he wasn't on adaptive, and your equipment block, it's really important that you cover 6. One of the Briars brought in Erase Face, and if that card hits you, you just have no turn. The adaptive plating will cover 6 with 2 plus the 1 block on the boots if you're on heavy industry,
Yeah.
where the tinkerings you need to make sure you keep up your helmet block to go 2/2/2. And sometimes you want to, like, if it's a balance of justice matchup, comboing with an extra card, 6 cards instead of 5 is like, well, we'll usually just put them like -10, -15.
Yeah.
So, or if they, but then if they present the on hit, you're like, oh damn, because I've already balanced, I now have to give a card. Where if you're on adaptive, you can still cover the 6.
So I guess we can kind of break down some of the mashups and kind of where you think you are in terms of the top 8 decks. Where do you think this deck's matchup like is like into for example Naive's Ira deck?
I looked through his Ira deck and I was like, oh, this is probably the best matchup. If I had won my top 8 game against Icelander, I think I paired into Naive and then David, who we played in Swiss, and I probably would have had a good chance at taking it. Their decks don't have any instant speed disruption, so you're only really playing around Erase Face for 6/7, and your equipment can cover 7 if you set up correctly. And then Diplomacy is limited, so you just put them on heavy. And even if they have it, I think David Lee Diplomacy'd me, and then I had System Reset. I cranked a processor off the top and had a monocle, opted 4 times, drew a card, and then reset both of them. And then because I've gone so much deeper in my deck, he just got high octaned to 0 next turn.
Yeah, so that Warmonger's Diplomacy really has to kind of put you ahead to kind of get that last kill turn, because if you give them the extra turn after that, they might just kill you back. What about...
Yeah, I usually wasn't doing straight 40, because you have to like combo off of not 100% kill. But as long as you leave a 2nd or 3rd octane in your deck will be so small that you can probably find it on the following turn. Or sometimes I'd find the octane midway, put it in Arsenal to make sure that I get them next turn.
What do you think the stacks matchups are like into the board control decks like Dromai or Prism, for example?
Prism I'm not too worried about. They have a lot of no blocks, so either they're taking their no blocks out and then they're just gonna race you with aggro. We don't have that many poppers, I think only the max Vs. But the Prism doesn't really disrupt you, so you get like 3 or 4 turns to work it out. Unless they have like erudition into erudition and stuff. Arclight also is like their main way to beat aggro, and you just kind of laugh at it if you find any item or use your equipment or high octane.
Yeah. So what do you think this deck's matchup into, for example... So we talked about earlier, so this deck very much kind of talks about in relation to our intro video where we kind of talked about the difference between resilient aggro decks and powerful aggro decks. So as we kind of talked about, we're thinking like Icelander and New are kind of the disruptive decks, are kind of harder to beat. But what about like the more fatiguey disruptive decks like Oldhim, for example, and to some extent Starvo?
I'm confident that you can beat any fatigue deck put in front of you that doesn't have like a lot of disruption like New. The problem is that you just have to play this deck really well, and that's quite hard to do. Into the fatiguey decks, in theory, you can set up the stasis cell and then 2 to 3 monocles. And then if you leave all of your power cards in your deck, you should have 3 Sparker Genius, 3 Tome of Findle. And with double octane, if you start on that, instead of finding it midway through, you get to fire a bunch of pistol shots in between. So you can definitely reach like 70, 80, 100 damage. But the problem is leaving your deck the right size that you don't fatigue yourself and keeping all the power cards in and then setting up the order. I think it's quite difficult, and you definitely need some practice on it.
Yeah, so we're very much talking about if you want to play this deck, you want to be someone who enjoys taking a lot of game actions, but also enjoys managing the resources of not only your deck, but also what's left kind of in terms of card economy. What do you think how big do you think you need to go? How much damage do you think is left in your deck? Which cards are left, which order they are in your deck, how to manipulate them with things like Dash's ability, as well as Optical Monocle and other effects like that.
Anyone that enjoyed Pitch Deck Kano, I think should probably give this a try. You've got some similar thought processes. instead of wildfire, you're waiting for octane, and then you do it proactively instead of reactively.
And this is less about the deck, but more so, what was the kind of experience of playing the Battle Hardened like? What was the kind of vibe at the event? How did?
That was the most fun I had all weekend. LL is not very popular at the moment. I kind of understand that. If you started playing like around Rosetta or just before then, all of the good LL decks you never would have seen except for Zen. And even then, Zen is now playing like Needles and Bonds and Artival, which never really existed in that state in CC. So cards are really hard to find, and then you've got to learn like 6 or 7 matchups, which obviously most people don't want to do. But if you just want to like blast, have some fun, I think LL's the way to go.
And what advice would you kind of give to people who maybe are in that spot where they've been playing for the last year or so? They haven't really seen a lot of the decks in LL, but now they're starting to pick it up for Skirmish and LL ProQuests, and potentially.
So I know one of the Zens that made top 8 had never played Zen before Sunday. His friend gave him a deck, and then he was like, "Oh my god, this Art of War card's pretty good." So I would definitely start on Zen or Starvo, and just kind of get a feel for what you like. The cool part about Dash.io is you don't need anyone to practice with. You just got to kind of put your headphones on and then sit at your table and do some combo solitaire, which I know will dread some people and others will love.
Also, in terms of like accessibility, if you play Dash.io and CC, you probably have like all of these cards, maybe apart from the
It's
two
like
handles, which are
maybe $30 if that. I think you have to buy Time of Final Reset, which I could not find for the life of me. There's only one at the vendors. But if you live in America, I'm sure you can order them online. And then there's like some of the sideboard items, but I think the only one that's like actually needed is an old time zone, which I think you probably play in CC anyway.
Yeah, I think if you play Dash.io and CC, this is a really easy transition to LL. That's very cheap and a very good budget. And even if you don't play Dash.io in CC, this deck is not incredibly expensive. You know, a lot of the tools are quite
It's just
generic
mech
and cheap.
cards, yeah.
I mean, stuff like High Octane isn't very expensive now. Neither is
I
Maximum
think
Velocity.
Twin Drive's like the only card over $20,
Yeah, 100%.
and everything else is just chaff.
So on a personal note, where can we see you? Where are you going to be moving forwards? I think at the time of posting, it'll be just after calling Auckland. What's kind of on your roadmap and schedule coming past that event?
So obviously I'll be at the Calling Auckland, hopefully sealed champion. But if not, we'll go play some sealed again in the Battle Hardened. Usually I do quite well at Battle Hardens, but not at the main events. I gotta break that curse at some point. After that, I will be at some PQs in Wellington in October and the store champs as well, and hopefully we can qualify for the store champion finals. And haven't decided if I'm doing worlds yet, but you guys will probably know after Auckland.
If we see you at Worlds, I'm sure you'll be playing Dash Arrow. I think that's very likely to happen.
You can catch me taking every game action under the sun while my opponent looks sad.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, thanks for coming on the channel. TBG is obviously a part of Snapdragons. We'll be having Jude Cornett on next, who will be breaking down his Dromai deck from the top 8 of the event. And yeah, this kind of concludes the video. I hope you guys have learned a lot about Dash.io kind of from the master. And I hope that you guys are starting to get excited about LL going into your Skirmish and ProQuest season. Please remember to subscribe, it really helps us out. And please remember to kind of hit a like on the video if you enjoyed our content. And make sure to, leave a comment if you have any questions or are curious about anything. I think that's everything on my end. Anything you want to add, TBG?
Pick the deck up. It's a lot of fun. Trust.
That's always great words to hear. All right. We'll catch you on the next video. Thanks for watching.